You can't believe that.
Yeah. That's because it's more comfortable back there. It's more comfortable. These chairs are
What do you think, Jack?
ergonomic, but
Talking about people here. I'm just saying, no
Yeah,
one's sitting in
just the audience.
Yeah, be careful. That we can just cancel the meeting.
Yeah.
Watch out if they start moving up. I want to go home. Steve, if they start moving uphill, then you gotta worry. No, the door is like, that's gonna be pretty fast.
All right, if everybody's ready, I've got 6 o'clock. So I'll go ahead and reconvene the meeting from open session, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I don't need to.
And my nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have nothing to report, no action taken from the closed session. So our next item would be approval of tonight's agenda. Any questions or comments from the council? All right, any questions or comments from the public on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, we have minutes from the September 12th meeting. They were added this afternoon. If we have not had a chance to look at them, we can switch to next meeting, or if we have enough people that have looked at them, I'd prefer to push it. Okay.
I haven't seen it.
Scrapless nodding as well. Okay. And okay. So we're going to, I'll move then that we, well, I don't need to ask for a public comment then, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to move to continue the minutes approval for September 12th to the November City Council meeting. And is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So we'll move that out to November. So next up are the council reports and committee assignments. I usually start to my left. So Jack, if you're ready.
No, but I'll go anyway. There was no HCOG meeting. And I'm hoping that we'll have Councilman Tuttle at the next HCOG meeting. Someone too. So the only thing I've got to report is that we have working on trying to get the trails meetings. It looks like as of now, I believe we do have a quorum. So we will be next Tuesday for our first trails meeting in 6 months. So we're hoping to get a lot done. So that we'll get back next month. I'll tell you about it. That's it.
Okay, fine.
Oh yeah, and it'll be next Tuesday here at 5 p.m.
That's in person, right? Now.
Yeah, we'll be.
Committee meeting?
It'll be. Yeah, we have a quorum in person. We may have a couple of people calling it.
Okay, thank you. Hey, did you have anything you wanted to share? No, nothing to report. Okay. Well, actually, let me continue. I'll go last. Go ahead.
Nothing to report.
Yeah, I wanted to report from the Humboldt Transit Authority. Recently, the board approved a fairly significant overhaul of the staff compensation, resulting in the ability to hire more drivers. One of the problems that Humboldt Transit Authority was facing was an increased need for transportation without the ability to meet the need. This restructuring of the budget and compensation has allowed the Transit Authority to hire a lot more drivers, and unfortunately it takes a minute to train drivers, but within the next several months we should see quite a few more drivers available. And I bring this up because we have the unmet transit need discussion tonight. And it's really big. A lot of times these unmet transit needs remain unmet because we haven't been able to accommodate the need. Just want to encourage more and more in the net transit need that we're likely to meet that. So I think that's pretty significant for Humboldt Transit Authority.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to say that the Community Emergency Response Team or CERT team classes, I'm happy to say, full and has a waiting list. So that's that training is scheduled November 5th. So it was a 30-person class, and the fact that we have 30 people plus a waiting list is fantastic. So, and then we had the Water Advisory Committee meeting. Jack Tuttle and I were in that meeting, as well as Aaron. On September 27th, we covered a range of topics. We talked about the status of the water tank replacement. We talked about support, technical support for existing staff and the staffing model. And at the water plant, we talked about the status of the creation of a Humboldt sort of, I've been calling it a reservoir, but it's, it's like a catchment pond or whatever you want to call it, a storage pond. I think it's really a little bit easier to understand as just a reservoir, small one. And we also talked about some options for better water usage reporting and tools. One thing that did come up, and I think Eli's going to talk about it in a staff report, a member of the community was very concerned about our 2022 consumer confidence report, specifically around E. coli and copper levels. So it turned out it was just a misreading of the report. And I want to make it clear, we have no E. coli in our water. But we do have some follow-on questions about the copper levels. We just want to clear that. And then also we're going to have somebody come to the next WAC, which is scheduled for November, and have them really go through what is in a consumer confidence report. How do you read the report? How can we make it more clear for people so that we never have somebody worried about the quality of their water, unnecessarily. So anyway, so that was kind of the biggest takeaway from that meeting, I think, was just getting really better at doing the reporting. So that's all I have.
Anything about storage in the city of Trinidad within a personal storage? So they could
No, but we do have it on the agenda to talk more about rainwater catchment and using especially rainwater for gardening and landscaping, which is usually about 70% of water usage. So hoping something like that could help.
I hope that keeps coming out.
All right. So let me ask if there's any public comments about anything you've heard from the council here on routes. Okay, I don't see any questions about that, so we're going to move on to our staff report. So Eli.
Thank you. In the staff report, the first item is regarding Humboldt Creek. As of Friday, the flow measurement was 1.38 CFS. We are getting more. The Vanwood Trails mentioned in there that because of the California Coastal Commission, that we had a meeting with the Arcata Coastal Commission staff discussing options for the Vanwood Trail. And 6 months we need to the Coastal Commission to what can and or should be done. Trip. STR Advisory Committee will be meeting next Monday, the 16th at 6 p.m. Or you can attend. And regarding the consumer confidence report, so what I did say here, and then I'll add to it, the comment question was posed under items from the floor. Last Water Advisory Committee question was regarding the consumer confidence report of 20. since then, Phil Godman of Coleman Engineering had prepared the report, provide the following. Number one, which that there were no E. coli violations for the 2022 year. In the report, it does say one, but the one is in the category of saying that if there was one, then that would be an issue. Under the column that says what the actual, results were, it was 0. So that's something that we'll be addressing at the next water, as to how to read the consumer confidence. The way the state has it here, some of the categories are just acronyms, and as a result, when they see one, they think, gee, that's one, not realizing that was saying if there was a sample, then it would be.
That was the maximum allowed.
Exactly.
And not what was done.
Exactly. So the second thing is regarding copper, and in here I say that the city's distribution system has no lead or copper lines. Only copper and lead lines are actually on the consumers and beyond the city's pipes. Therefore, consumer pipes of the residents or businesses would be the source of copper or lead. And also there were some follow-up questions that were posed by Aaron, and as a result, I did speak to Phil. Phil's going to be responding also to that question. But specifically what Phil was saying is that in our last test regarding copper and lead, we tested 10 houses. Few of those homes showed non-detect for copper and lead. So what that implies is that the water itself coming from the plant does not have copper or lead in it. Those couple homes would had some copper or lead in it if the water coming from the plant had copper or lead.
Yeah, I think that was the confusion. Was where are they testing the water? Is it before or after it comes to a residence?
Yeah,
right?
if they're testing it in the residence.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have 10 homes that we normally test, and those were the ones that were contacted, and it was tested in the residence. So therefore, the source is not from the plant because we did have several of no copper and no lead. Hopefully that helps answer the question. And that's all I have.
All right, I'm going to go to any public comments about the staff report.
Something just came to me. My question just formed.
Yeah.
Eli, of the 10 homes that they tested, were some of them, did some of them have copper or lead?
Yes.
Lead pipes, and they did show detect.
Yes.
The ones that did not had what, some other form of piping?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, either that or they might have had copper or lead, but none of it was getting into the water.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the part, and I'll take this offline, we can talk about it at the next WAC, is I'm confused a little bit about why we wouldn't just test upstream before it gets to the houses so that we know that it's clean going into the houses, but maybe it's a mechanical thing, like there's no outlet to test.
Well, we were also wanting to make sure that nothing through our pipes was, but since our pipes don't have copper or lead, we didn't have it.
Right.
But by testing it at the end rather than at the beginning, at least that's what the state requires.
Yeah.
Because we have to report that to the state.
I see. Yeah, so yeah, I get it. Yeah, I wasn't thinking at the plant. I was thinking like right before it gets to a house.
Right.
There's no option to do that. So.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And I had a quick one about the Van Wyck Trail. I just wanted to ask, I was asked when public will be able to give input, because I know staff is working on some different options. What do you think is a reasonable timeline? Would it be like January or, sometime in the next 6 months when this will come before the council?
Yeah, certainly it'll be a month or two before that 6 month period ends. So as soon as we have some viable options.
Yeah, so maybe think around January, February. In the meantime, public can send emails and suggestions anytime. So,
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me just move on then to items from the floor. At this time, members of the public may comment on items not on the agenda tonight. Individual comments will be limited to around 3 minutes or less. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole, maintain decorum, and avoid personal attacks on staff, members of the council, and/or members of the public. Council and staff responses will be minimal for non-agenda items. So at this time, are there any items from the floor?
Hey, Freshener, I just, under the staff report, it said a law enforcement report, and then I see that on the consent agenda, there's something about law enforcement, and it's on the agenda, but I wasn't sure you were going to discuss it, and I just wondered if we could have an update.
Yeah, when we have it on there on the agenda, what we mean is if we do have Lieutenant Josh McCall present, then we usually do turn it. He addresses it. Side of law. He noted another engagement today, couldn't attend. But in the packet, you're right, we do include the report that we get from the sheriff's office. And then Gabe goes through and highlights the ones that are actually within the city limit.
I was thinking about the city security the other day.
Oh, that's on the agenda under consent agenda. And we do have a contract for the council with Pacific Coast Security. And then as soon as the contract is signed, then we'll have to schedule what.
So the contract is in the consent agenda, as is the law enforcement report. And we don't have a schedule yet for Pacific Coast Security to come back, but we have an agreed upon agreement. And the next step is for us to reconvene and figure out a schedule. So they will be coming back. Yeah, to answer, because I could tell that was your question. And yes, and I'm delighted that is the case. Yes. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, my goodness. If I could beg the indulgence of council tonight, I actually had to bring up, and one of them is for me, but unfortunately the person is not. But I was wondering if I could take just a minute of time after the consent agenda discussion, if she should be here by then. And I just want to introduce to you our new executive director for the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust. Yeah. And let you at least see her face. And I won't take up more than a minute or so when she arrives, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. The next item is not as pleasant, but I do think it's important that we discuss it. When the city of Trinidad voted in the mid-2000s to increase the sales tax to a rate above Humboldt County level, the city worked very hard to ensure that residents living within the 95570 code, but outside of the city limits, would not be forced to pay the higher sales tax. City staff worked very closely with the state to alert merchants and sales companies about the two different sales tax rates in the 95570 zip code. As you know, currently the city rate is 8.85 for city limits and 7.75%. That's outside the city limits, but still within the 95570. Couldn't be any more complicated, could it? So my recollection is that when this first occurred, that the approach appeared working successfully. And what I mean that is that for several years there were complaints, periodic checks of the sales tax. We were being charged the proper to live outside the city limits. Fortunately, that is not the present situation. And unfortunately, too, is that I cannot tell you when or exactly when this occurred, but I have been looking at my sales tax receipts for different items that I purchased. This basically is all internet sales. Some companies do not charge the proper rate. One of the violators is Amazon. And I unfortunately look back at receipts for a remodel of both a kitchen and a bathroom at our home. Discovered that I had been charged the sales tax for quite some time and for quite a bit of money as well. The problem is that it's almost impossible today to talk to a human when you order things online. So even if, so being able to tell them that there is two different sales tax rates is very difficult, very challenging. And if you do find someone, if you can talk to someone, oftentimes they have no idea what you're talking about. So it's a very, very frustrating setup. I believe that everyone in the 95570 zip code outside the city limit charge these rates. Now, I have not, but I've noticed to talk to several people. And one comment was, I didn't even know that I was being charged that rate. And the comment was, no, I've been charged that rate, but I can't do anything about it. I had one person who said to me, well, our city's pretty small, so you should pay the higher tax rate to support the city anyway. I'll leave it at that. It's not that we don't want to support the city. Many of us outside the city limits do volunteer our time, our energy to support the city, and I certainly want to continue to do that. However, and by the way, I gladly would pay the Trinidad city tax when I purchase goods or services within the city limits. It's perfectly acceptable, and I understand that. It's unfair and probably illegal to be forced to pay the Trinidad sales tax without having any into the tax rate or how the tax funds are being spent. I hate to use the expression, but it's the classic taxation without representation. Now, admittedly, there are more issues for staff to work on, and I appreciate that. And I don't have any problem with that, but I really do believe that the city council needs to take a look at this and resolve this issue. So I am here tonight to ask the city to act responsibly to settle this as soon as possible. At the very least, I'm requesting that the city staff return to the council with a plan and schedule to solve this and to clarify the legal implications of taxing area residents at this rate. Anything less than that is acceptable to those who can support the city, but have no say in our tax dollars are being spent. Thank you for your attention. I so appreciate there will be.
Right. So thank you. Before we move on from that, I'll just say, Richard, that thank you for your comments. I was aware of this issue. I think we do need to address it. And we'll talk about it in future agenda items to get it on the council, unless staff has.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Dave if he wanted to make a comment because he has reached out to the state.
Yeah, CDA, FTA, or whatever.
Sure, I did reach out to the state today, so I've got someone to respond, and I do believe this is a state issue. The state decides what the tax jurisdictional boundaries are. The state determines who and how they communicate to large retail online vendors. You're right, we had a grip, at least a pretty good grip on this in 05, 6, 7, 8, but since then the internet has blown up. and in terms of sales, but I do disagree with you that this is a city of Trinidad problem. I think that we follow all the rules and regulations when the city applies, goes to the voters to determine whether or not the sales tax increase will go into effect in the city, and we follow all the state rules who heavily regulates this process. So I would say that this is a state problem more than it is a city problem, but I definitely want to get to the bottom.
As far as I'm concerned, I don't really need to know if it's a state problem or a city problem. I need your help. Can't necessarily handle this on my own. And I the extra push from the city that we can resolve this. But do recall very clearly that the city worked very, very hard initially to make this work. And so I see why the city shouldn't help us again. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you,
that.
Richard.
All right. Come up here. I just wanted to introduce Claire Nasser to you. Claire is our new executive director of the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust. We're really excited to have her on board. She comes to us with a very, very extensive background in environmental science, research, stewardship, and we're really excited to have her on our team. She has worked with the land trusts in the past, was away for a while, is now back, and she is a graduate from Cal Poly, and again, we're excited to have her on our team, and she will be obviously reaching out to the city, and hopefully we can collaborate on a lot of great projects in the future. 2 words? Sure. Thanks.
Just have some notes, but they're brief. I just wanted to introduce myself as well, and I wanted to share my contact information with everybody. And if you have any concerns or questions or want to meet up, members of the public or any of you, my email is claire@trinidadcoastallandtrust.org. And I just wanted to reiterate my enthusiasm and excitement to be back in this community. As mentioned, my master's thesis was working on seabird and pinniped, seal and sea lion, essentially marine wildlife spatial use. And I also investigated how humans use the coast. I was also a California Sea Grant Fellow. And so I'm really interested in policy. So I know it's a privilege to be here just in this podium. I know how important public processes are. And it's just a pleasure to meet all of you. And please reach out. Thank you so much.
Well, we're delighted to have you as a partner to the city. We really appreciate the work that the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust does. And we'll be calling upon your expertise, I think, on the seabirds, especially right now, because we have gotten some comments from members of the community wondering why we're having kind of a die-off of seabirds. And so there's been, some discussion around that. So
certainly, being the California sea lions, when I walk my dog, and seen a lot of, I think it's probably leptospirosis. So, happy to talk about that.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you all so much.
Welcome. Okay, I think that's any other items from the floor. All right, we are ready to move on then to our tonight's consent agenda. So I guess to the council, any questions or comments on that? Okay, members of the public, any questions or comments around tonight's consent agenda? All right, I'll bring it back to the council.
Move to approve.
And I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so tonight's consent agenda is approved, and that will move us then into our discussion and action agenda items for tonight. And we start with the annual, unmet transit needs hearing. So, Eli, are you kicking us off on that, or?
Yeah, we've got, we have Stevie Luther from HCOG. I should have had Jack introduce him, but anyway, he's present, and
I'm like reading everything.
He'll have a little short presentation, and then they'll unmet.
Welcome, Stephen. Sorry to stumble there on turning it over to you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I am Stephen Luther. I'm the Associate Planner for the Humboldt County Association of Governments. And we do these unmet transit needs hearings every year. And I wanted to kind of tee it up this year with a short presentation on the state of the regional transit system and just share some information. All right. So let's go through some graphs of ridership numbers recently and performance metrics, and then get into some exciting developments from Humboldt Transit Authority with their branding and tap to pay fare discounts and a few new services. So these unmet transit needs hearings are about the use of the local transportation fund. And I've just highlighted here the allocation that the city of Trinidad has received in the last 2 fiscal years. And when there is a finding that there are no unmet needs that are reasonable to meet, this pot of money can be used for streets and roads purposes. And so looking at HTA, which is by far the largest transit agency, last year they had 446,000 passengers, of which 60,000 were using a Jack Pass. The fare box return rate overall was 15.8%. And then this graph shows the various services, and you can see the steep decline in ridership numbers that happened during COVID. But then the big story there is that it is increasing year over year, and we're seeing a lot more riders return. And Arcata and Mad River Transit has also seen a somewhat slower, but also increasing ridership. And so these are just some examples of performance metrics that I look at to determine if a transit need is reasonable to meet. And so this is the fare box return ratio for the various services. And these graphs are taken from the Transit Development Plan, which we are currently wrapping up at HCOG. And then this figure shows the operating subsidy per passenger trip, which can give you a sense of the cost effectiveness. And then finally, the ridership per vehicle service hour, which again, we can see on the right-hand side that it is starting to increase as we're seeing more and more riders. So getting into some new developments, HTA is working on a regional branding called Ride Humboldt. And this would be like a decal to show that all these various transit lines can be interchangeable. The idea is to use these credit card validators to easily transfer between different lines. And right now there is a 2 hours for a $2 rate. So you can tap your credit card on the Redwood transit system in Trinidad and then transfer onto an Arcata bus within that 2 hour window, and you'd still just be charged $2. And in addition to that, there is a $50 regional month pass. Another exciting development is microtransit. This actually just passed at the HTA board last week as on a pilot basis. And what they'll be doing is opening up the Dial-A-Ride system to the general public. And you can download an app on your smartphone and order a ride. For right now, it'll still be picking people up at regular bus stops, but it would be about 15 minutes to get that ride. And depending on how that pilot goes, there is potential to expand it to other communities. A few other new transit services in Arcata, the Green and Gold is providing service to Valley West and Cal Poly on every half hour. And then we were also really excited that the Yurok tribe was able to restart the Orleans to Wichipec to Hoopa route. And then another one to keep your eye out for is the Redwood Coast Express, which is anticipated to start in January next year. And this will be an express route from Eureka to Ukiah. And that will be able to connect, kind of fill a gap in public transit that exists right now. And then finally, just a few of the known transit needs that we hear often are for more frequent service, for Sunday service and later night service, as well as earlier and later service during the weekdays. As Councilmember Ladwig mentioned, one of the issues was hiring bus drivers, and it seems like they're getting some new hires, but there is still a need. I also wanted to highlight the need that came up last year at this hearing was just looking for more frequent service from Trinidad, as well as getting a pickup at Patrick's Point Drive. And so the Redwood Coast Transit coming from Crescent City will, you can schedule in advance to be picked up. They can deviate and go down Patrick's Point Drive. And I kind of made this table to show that if you include the Redwood Coast Transit, which stops at the Trinidad Park and Ride, along with the Redwood Transit system, it is coming about 7 times a day through Trinidad. There are definitely some gaps in the afternoon, but for this reason, it was determined to be not an unmet need. And there's the info for looking for HTA bus drivers. And then finally, we have an online survey at that link and encourage folks to take that. It's open until December 31st, and I look forward to hearing any comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Well, the first thing I had on my list was micro transit, consider a pilot. Yeah, so thank you for doing that. I thought that would be really great. Other comments from the council?
I just would thank you very much, Stephen. And I think it's on us to make sure that we get this out as far as possible. So now that we have the ability to throw it up there, I think that the hardest thing is just getting everybody to know that this is free. So I'm not sure how far we can go up Patrick's Point Drive. I think that's encouraging. Just tap into that part of it. But yeah, get more input to find out what people.
Absolutely. And then I was going to add a couple of other quick things. One of them is the weight limit on bike racks. I think it's around 55 pounds right now. As more and more people use electric bikes, I don't know if you guys have talked about increasing the weight or the capacity for heavier bikes on the buses. I don't even know if it's an issue yet, but it might be down the road because, so to speak, because most e-bikes I think are like 40 to 80 pounds. So yeah, so there's something to think about. Any other comments from the council?
I had one comment. I'm not absolutely sure you're the person just asked about this, but I noticed the buses move pretty fast through Trinidad, and I wonder if you have any connection to get them to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I can mention that as it's more of an operations issue that I can bring up with the Humboldt Transit Authority.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate
it. Mm-hmm.
I'm in the Bay Area and I'm doing transit. I open up Apple Maps and it will tell me to take the BART, and then it takes me to spells out the whole trip for me. Is that something that members here in Humboldt, where the Apple Maps, all these different busing groups that you've been talking?
Yeah, it definitely. I'm an Android user. Google Maps connects bus trips like that, and there's also an application called the Transit app that will show you the real-time arrival info of a bus, which is cool to be able to track it. That one, I don't think that speaks as much to your route planning question, but that is another kind of technological piece. And I should also say hta.org has great maps and all the PDFs of the timetables that you can download.
Right. Are there any comments from the public on the unmet transit needs? All right, I don't see any comments from the public, but we'll pass along as Councilor Ladwig suggested. We can do something on the website and make sure we include the link to that survey, Stephen. So thank you for joining us.
Great, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks.
All right, the next item on our list is continued decision regarding traffic calming measures for View, Ocean, and Underwood. Will I be turning that TV or Doc?
Yeah. Yeah, we do have Josh Wolf present from GHD. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make our last couple meetings of a special to help some of the questions that have arisen and suggestions on how we could approach the traffic calming alternative.
All right, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Great, thanks.
All right. Just give me 1 second to get this shared. Okay, I'm seeing the screen okay?
Yes, that's great.
All right, great, excellent. Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. Appreciate you guys having me tonight. So what I'd like to do is just run through a few items that I want to cover for tonight's discussion. So first, I do want to provide just a quick update on some of the existing work that is in progress, as well as some upcoming and planned safety projects that are happening throughout the city. I know there's also been some discussion and interest in potentially doing a traffic analysis, so I can provide a quick overview of what that could entail. And I also do want to highlight some of the recommendations that were included in the recent city's local road safety plan, and also discuss some potential low cost improvements that could be implemented if desired. All right, so as far as work in progress, and a lot of this is already covered in the staff report, so I'll go quickly through it, but the first thing up is there is a sign audit in progress. This is a citywide audit that's being led by the city's public works staff. This includes auditing all the existing signs and then systematically going through and replacing non-standard signs, worn or faded signs, identifying signs that are obstructed by vegetation and other obstructions, and looking to either trim vegetation or possibly relocate those signs. And there's several examples of these throughout town. These are real examples in town. Obviously, very faded sign shown there on the bottom left. Obstructed signs on Main Street. That's the speed limit sign that's obstructed by the tree on Main Street. And there's actually an additional curb warning sign that's in the background, which is completely obstructed. And then certainly on the right side, that's just an example of a non-standard speed limit sign that could also be addressed. So again, all of these improvements are already in place, and we hope to see some improvements and some results here in the coming weeks. In addition to that, I think back in March, I did come before council and present to you on the Cycle 10 HSIP project. So this is a grant that the city was successful on a couple of years ago. I think it brought on the order of around $800,000 to do safety improvements throughout town. First piece was the installation of striping on several roads through town. So this is edge line and center line striping. It included Stagecoach Road within the city limits, West Haven Drive, also within city limits, as well as Frontage Road. And that's actually all of Frontage Road, including a large component, which is actually in the county right away. So frontage, I know, is one I think that came up recently in some discussions at council. So just specifically on frontage, what would happen is the existing center line stripe would be replaced, as well as the fog line stripe would be added. There's an example of frontage there on the bottom left. Currently, there is no fog line stripe. So by adding that fog line stripe, you actually look to narrow and establish a real travel lane, and then provide a shoulder area, which could be utilized for, non-motorized use as well. But certainly narrowing and establishing that travel lane will also we hope to reduce vehicle speeds. Along with that, existing signs along frontage and actually all these roads that I'm talking about will also be replaced as part of that project to bring them up to current standards as well. The next component of that HSIP project is replacing all of the existing guardrail systems that are within city limits, as well as some that are just outside of city limits. So there's 3 locations shown here on Scenic Drive. These are all within city limits. So it's replacing these old systems. Some of them are actually damaged, but all of them are non-standard based on today's standards. So those will be replaced, as well as the guardrail, which is just north of city limits on Patrick's Point Drive within the county right away. And that component is being done in collaboration with the county. And the last component of the HSIP project are actually intersection improvements. So these are new or enhanced crosswalk markings, curb ramp retrofits, the installation of RRFBs, which are rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So the city does have a set of these right outside Town Hall. That also includes some curb ramp and driveway extensions and signage and striping enhancements at these intersections. And those include Main Street and View Ave, Edward Street and Hector Street, and Edward Street at Galindo Street. And then the city is also actively pursuing an additional opportunity. This is through the 2024 STIP, which is run through HCOG. Just last week, the Technical Advisory Committee, and I believe actually the HCOG board, did move forward and recommend that Trinidad receive some funding to do some work on Main Street. This includes replacing the existing sidewalk, which I'm sure many of you know on the south side of Main Street is very narrow, as narrow as 3 feet in some locations. So replacing that sidewalk, widening that out to a standard width, which would be at least 4 feet, but likely more like 5 feet. Replacing the non-standard and non-accessible driveway drops. A picture of that is also on that photo in the right. And also potentially adding a new crosswalk at Ocean Ave. And I'm realizing that graphic on the left is not pointing to the correct location, but that crosswalk would be at Ocean Ave, not at the alleyway. So we would analyze that, take a look, see if that is a suitable location for crosswalk. If it is, we could add an additional crosswalk there and possibly even make that an enhanced crosswalk like some of the others that we're talking about. So we hope to hear more about this by the end of the year, whether or not this project will be funded. The soonest this would move forward, though, really is at least 2 years out. But it is something that we hope to pursue. The other item I wanted to touch on was a potential traffic analysis. So I know this came up at previous council meetings. There's some interest in gathering some additional data to better understand not just the traffic speeds through town, but also the distribution of traffic through the downtown area. So what we would propose to do is first initially look at doing both a volume and speed survey at the location shown here. So that would be Main Street, View Ave, Ocean Ave, Trinity Street, and Edward Street. I do this on here that Underwood is optional because I know this discussion is focused around Underwood as well. But if you look at just these 5 locations in the downtown area, doing this analysis would help council, the public, and certainly us on the engineering side understand really what's happening in this area. It would help us better understand what the actual speeds are that the traveling public is traveling on these roads, as well as the distribution of vehicles through town. I know there's been a lot of concern that traffic is diverted off of Trinity Street with some of the more recent safety and speed calming measures that were implemented in the last decade or so, and the traffic is now being diverted onto Ocean and View. So analysis like this would really let us look at what's happening so that we can make some informed decisions on what type of improvements, if any, are warranted. We did get some initial cost estimates to do this analysis, and those are highlighted at the bottom here. And this is just for the 5 locations. Essentially, there's 2 options that we came up with. The first option is about $5,000. These are 1-day, 24-hour counts. The second option, which was around $10,000, this is 7-day, 24-hour counts. Really, the advantage of the 7-day counts is that you're getting much more data, and overall, that really should be more accurate. The risk of just doing a single day count is you're going to be at the mercy of really whoever is traveling or not traveling on that specific day. It may not be representative of something you see on average over the course of a week, which the 7-day analysis will give you. So but we want to present both options because there certainly is a cost difference between the 2.
Josh, we have a quick question from.
Sure, absolutely.
I noticed the volume and speed survey. If that's done now or anytime before the next tourist season, won't the data be grossly different? And will it be as useful as we need?
I'm sorry. Do you mind repeating that? It was hard to pick up the audio.
I'm thinking that if you do the traffic analysis during tourist season, you get one set of data, and if you do it off, you get another set. And I'm wondering about that.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's a valid point. You're only going to get the data based on the time of year and the specific time period you do it. And certainly Trinidad does have two seasons, if not more, with the tourist season and the non-tourist season. Certainly the school season also plays into that as well, though. I know this is there's a lot of active discussions around this topic. I'd be hesitant to waiting till summer to get the data. I think you'd still get very good, valid data if you pursued with something like this sooner than later. And you certainly, at a minimum, want to do it when school's in session. Is there any other questions on that? Okay, or if not, I'm happy to keep going.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the other item I just want to quickly cover was the Trinidad Local Road Safety Plan. So this slide just highlights really what that plan was. So it was an analysis that provided the framework for identifying and analyzing and prioritizing safety improvements within the city of Trinidad. This was a data-driven plan that did utilize input from stakeholders, and there's a number of the stakeholders shown in the bottom right, just with their logos. It also did include a pretty robust public outreach component. It did analyze collision data that was available, as well as risk factors, really with the intent to identify road safety concerns and also identify potential safety improvements. This plan was completed in late 2021 and ultimately adopted by council in January of 2022. The plan did look at what we call the 5 E's of traffic safety. These are engineering, enforcement, education, emergency response, as well as emerging technologies. But I just want to focus on the very first one, which are the engineering items. And what these are really looking to apply low-cost safety countermeasures at specific locations that do have potential risks. So I tried my best to summarize what I saw included in the LRSP, and there's a lot of different information in there, and I certainly encourage everyone to take a look, but these are the ones that look like they're most applicable to the downtown area, and they're highlighted here. So the first up is really just looking at the center line and edge line striping. So obviously in Trinidad, there's quite a few roads that have center line only striping, and many that has no striping at all. So the LRSP specifically did recommend adding edgeline striping to Main Street and Trinity Street, where they only have existing centerline striping, and then looking to add either centerline or edgeline striping on Underwood, Parker, East, West, Hector Street, Edward Street, which does have a little bit of centerline striping, and as well as some edgeline striping, but it is inconsistent. So Edward Street, and then View Street and Ocean Street, which I know are one of the main conversations we're talking about tonight. In addition to just those striping improvements, it also did recommend adding some additional curb warning signage at several locations through town. This includes the intersection of Main Street and Trinity Street as westbound traffic is coming on Main Street and wrapping around towards the school, as well as on Edwards Street at really two locations. It was Edwards and Ocean, where the road makes that 90-degree bend. But I would also certainly recommend, along with that, is looking at the similar signage where Trinity Street tees into Edwards Street. There is an existing Chevron sign at that location, but that Chevron sign was actually installed when there wasn't stop signs at that intersection. And now that really is truly a T intersection and vehicles could likely go either left or right, I would recommend considering changing that sign out into a two-way arrow shown there. In addition to that, the LRSP also did suggest installing radar feedback signs on both Trinity Street and Main Street, as well as considering adding Class 3 bikeways to several locations. These are what we call sharrows. An example of that is shown in the bottom right. Did recommend looking at doing them on Main Street, Trinity Street, both Ocean and View Ave, as well as Edwards Street. And then lastly, one of the primary intersections that was considered and was identified as a safety concern was the intersection coming into town, the southbound on-off ramps to US 101 and the intersection of Patrick's Point Drive, Scenic Drive, and Main Street. And so a roundabout was identified as a potential solution at that location. So in addition to those improvements, there are a few other things that we just wanted to throw out there, some potential low-cost improvements that could be implemented relatively quickly. And some of these you have seen before. Some of them may be new. There's certainly pavement markings, and there's a few options for this. I think at past council meetings, we did talk about possibly installing some speed limit markings on both Ocean Ave and View Ave, and I think those are still potentially good improvements that are on the table. A new one, which we haven't talked about, is actually installing what we call advanced speed hump markings. So an example of that is shown on the bottom of the screen. These are markings that are typically in advance of speed humps, but they could be installed without speed humps. They are intended as a mechanism to draw driver awareness to speed humps, but you could certainly use them to draw driver awareness to unique situations such as the desire to lower speeds on Ocean and View Ave. So just as an example of what that could look like, we did just do a very quick simulation to show you what that could look like. So it'd be installing these horizontal stripes across the road, and then this larger white bar you see across the screen. This would really just be a stripe. That's normally where a speed hump would sit, but you could use just a striping in lieu of the actual speed hump. With this, we're also showing the potential to relocate the speed limit signs, as well as the sharrow markings that were recommended by the LRSP. For View Ave here too, you can see that we've also shown what an edge line stripe may look like as well. So again, just wanted to provide this as an example to give you some ideas of some potential low-cost improvements that could be implemented relatively quickly if you so choose. And with that, I think I will pause and take any questions that you may have.
Okay, I think this is going to be an interesting discussion because there's a lot here, and so maybe the best way to structure this is we can kind of ask Josh questions and kind of add some comments, go to public comments, and then try to come to a little bit more of a conclusion about what our action should be. Because I can see this, there's just a lot here. I can see this going in a lot of different directions, but maybe we can try to summarize at the end what the council agrees to. So with that, let me start with the council and see what kinds of questions or comments you have so far. Anybody?
I'll start. Okay. I just want to say I was pleasantly surprised with your low-cost suggestions right at the end there, because I've gotten a lot of feedback from people, just neighbors and so forth, about the speed humps, both positive and negative, and on both sides with strong opinions So the idea of low cost alternatives to try, and I like the fake out with the pink and then the stripe. Thank you for that. That sort of opened up an avenue in my mind.
Wes, did you want to say something?
I definitely like how we put it the white lines on the side, so it shrinks the road, so it feels more narrow. And I know I drive slower when there's lines on both sides, and I definitely take out of the speed hump. It reminds drivers, hey, slow down. Definitely.
Yeah. And the speed limit signs on either side of the large stripe really calls attention.
Right.
I mean, I'm in favor of the traffic study, the 7-day traffic study. I agree that it would be nice to have it in the middle of summer, but certainly extrapolate that whatever we see during the school year and a regular weekend, we just know it's going to be much more significant. So if anything, we just get a baseline. Here's, the majority of time. And then we certainly know from living here that, weekends in the summer and things like that are going to be even more so. But right now, I don't even know what to compare it to. So I think I would advocate for the 7-day study. Because if I'm not mistaken, Josh, it's on all the streets where the study encompasses a bunch of different streets throughout. I was looking for it in the packet. Can you remind me or remind us where those sort of, what was it, volume and speed that we'd be studying, where that would occur in the city?
Yeah, and I apologize that the audio breaks up a little. So if I ask you, if I miss your question, please repeat it. But I think you're asking the locations. Is that right? You wanted to see this slide?
Slide I was looking for right there. So main view at Ocean. Yep. That to me seems to encompass the comments that we've been hearing.
Definitely.
That's my only input.
Wes, did you have something you wanted to add as well?
No, I'm not sure I'm ready yet, Sean.
Okay.
Josh,
No rush.
Josh, what would the cost be for those low cost speed bump fake outs?
Call them that.
Don't tell him. So he was asking about cost, Josh, if you know offhand.
Yep. Yeah, it's a somewhat difficult question to answer. Some of this, city public works crew could potentially install themselves, but certainly you could hire a contractor as well. It's probably on the order of, a couple $1,000s per location would be my guess.
Okay. Or we could spend $10,000 just to see how fast people drive.
So,
Eli?
Yeah, I have a comment, but Eli, go ahead.
I was just going to comment regarding this because of what both Steve and Jack had said regarding the 10,000 study. I showed this to Gabe this afternoon. I said that the radar speed signs, we got this in the mail this past week, and it shows a pack of 3 of them for $9,000. They say that free traffic data and software updates for life. So basically, this is solar. It would be recording as every vehicle passes by what the speed is, and also you get the number of vehicles that are going by. So instead of doing like a 7-day thing, this could be a permanent thing that we would have always ongoing. So anyway, it just a thought.
I think it's a great idea. I had that on my list too. And either to get one and rotate it or multiple. And that I think I got, you can lease them. There was one company that you could lease them from and it'd be less expensive, but having at least one on hand that we own would make sense to rotate. And there's all this data. I don't have it in front of me about how it reduces speed, right? Because it is effective. It may be as effective or more so than a speed bump. it would be really good to compare those. But so I love the idea of the short-term kind of low-cost stuff because paint is fairly cheap. And so, you know, putting the speed limit on the streets, I think was suggested last time, and that was in this study. That seemed like low-hanging fruit, as well as doing the radar signs. The ordinance that we talked about prohibiting trucks on Ocean and View, we could pursue that. And then I had volunteer shifts, but I don't think that we necessarily need that if the radar signs track it. But you can get a Bushnell radar detector handheld on Amazon for $110. And I think if you just, you know, had some volunteers standing out there with those, you could really slow people down. So, but anyway, I like the radar sign better. We don't have to, you know, get volunteers together. So anyway, so my thoughts were kind of, again, kind of the thinking the short-term, long-term, the short-term low-cost stuff would be easy to implement, but longer term, then I think maybe I was wondering about whether we'd ever thought about doing chicanes and whether or not the streets would support it, like Ocean and View. So Josh, like, I don't know if those streets are wide enough to do a chicane or a bulb out instead of a speed hump. But if we did something like that, it might look nicer and, you know, be more like a park-like setting. A chicane is where the curb kind of comes out. So it naturally slows the traffic because you can't get around it otherwise.
Yeah, my sense is that it would be challenging to do something like that, given just the fact that there's not a lot of right of way. You look at Ocean Ave, there's a number of improvements that have already been put in recent years, namely the stormwater improvements. You would likely lose some parking because, you know, you'd have to chicane into the parking areas. And cost-wise, it would certainly be more than striping because now you're looking at, you know, permanent roadway improvements. But it's something that could be looked at, but I think there would be some challenges with it, quite honestly.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking that maybe it was too narrow for that. And then I just want to mention, as we talked about all these improvements that the city is trying to do, that the Rancheria was also working on a plan and presented recently, maybe working, you know, on the roundabout at 101 and Main, and then also doing some improvements on Scenic. So that's another thing to factor in is the work that's being done outside of the city. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Jack, did you?
I mentioned that the question of roundabout is one I think is a great idea, but that's how difficult would that? Josh, what would they be looking at to try to put a roundabout in that area?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, they're challenging. It's a process. A roundabout like that would have to be done in close collaboration with Caltrans because about half of it would be within Caltrans right away, and it would impact the highway facilities. But it's not unprecedented, and I mean, frankly, we have other projects with other agencies where we are looking to do roundabouts at similar type intersections. If you were interested in pursuing something like that, I think you'd want to start with just a high-level planning study to look at what it may look like, what kind of right-of-way impacts there would be, what kind of environmental impacts, start to map out what the process is and what the cost is. And then at that point, if it's something the council would like to pursue, then it would be a matter of finding funding to take it to the next step. Cost-wise, for a half interchange, I mean, it could be in the order of magnitude of $8 to $10 million.
Josh, I have another question. Does a blinking speed sign offer more traffic calming than just a painted street sign?
I missed that one. Did you ask a radar feedback?
No, the speed limit signs that blink.
Oh yeah, the blinking ones, sure. Yeah, the blinker signs, just with LED lights on them.
Yeah, are they significantly better, and what do they cost?
I mean, they're better at drawing attention to the speed limit. I think the radar feedback signs that actually give you real-time, vehicle speed are probably more effective. The blinker signs are less costly. I think they're maybe half the price would be my guess, but still you're looking at, probably order of magnitude of a couple $1,000s. It's still a solar powered electronic lighting system that would need to be installed.
All right, if no other questions from the council, let me open it up into public comments or questions about traffic calming.
Hi, I'm Elaine Weinreb. I live in the Trinidad area. I'm not sure that I understood Josh correctly, but was he talking about painted fake speed bump on the road? How many times would it take a driver to realize that that is a fake sign? It would take one time. It sounds like a waste of money to me.
Were you able to hear that, Josh? She was just saying about the, kind of fake. Speed bumps.
No, I'm happy to respond. Yeah, I mean, these are not, we would be using advanced speed hump markings. These are not intended to be fake speed humps. The horizontal lines across the road, again, are intended to draw attention to the fact that there's something different about these roads, right? Right now, these roads are essentially either have no striping, no markings, they're wide open and long. So when you start to introduce features into the roadway, it draws driver attention to the fact that things are different, that they should be more aware. In this case, we would partner it with a speed limit sign. It would help them draw attention to the fact that the speed limit is 15 miles an hour and that they should be cautious of their speed. But yeah, I mean, you can't, most engineering solutions, unless you're talking about significant geometry adjustments, you can't force drivers to slow down. All you can do is draw attention to what the posted speeds are and what the desired speeds are and what the context of the roads are.
Yeah, so I think this time Josh was talking about the lines that would lead up to like a traffic, speed limit sign. Last meeting, you were here, Josh. We did talk a little bit about having like a fake painted speed hump at one point, and I think we all agreed that it would work once, but it might not work. It would work with people who were not from the city and didn't see it regularly or routinely.
Sure.
Are there any other public comments? All right, we have a couple more. So,
I don't like any signs in our town. They're cluttered and ugly, especially anything flashing. And our experience has been over at the museum that nobody pays any attention to any of the signs. No smoking, no skateboarding, etc. And on the 15 mile an hour 15-mile limit. We don't have any enforcement capability. Why put up a sign that has a limit on something and then we have no people in our town who can actually enforce a speed limit? It's kind of disrespectful. Disrespectful in that you're imposing limits on people, but there's no ability to follow up, I guess. And I just don't like any signs because we have pretty trees and pretty yards and pretty flowers, pretty everything in town, and all these signs are just an annoyance. That's my view, but I don't live in here, and so I would add that I defer to the businesses and those of you who actually live in the town and have to put up with these speeding cars every day. So that's the caveat.
Thank you, Patty.
First, I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate thorough discussions going on right now. With that, maybe it's time to reclassify the agenda item title. It seems like it's taking on a broader scope, which I think is very appropriate. Issues were raised for a few streets that had areas of concern, and it brought up this issue that's citywide. It was also, well identified in the traffic safety plan, as I see here: pedestrians, aggressive driving, speeding, distracted driving. We're for a number of years now. I think the painting and striping are excellent ideas. Anything to draw attention, better sign placement. I think that's a neat idea. I'm looking at the one there that Josh used an example that's in front of my residence. It's poorly placed right now. I think pulling it out and putting it in a place of prominence, not adding a sign, but adding it, relocating it to a place where it might be effective is a great idea. Like Patty, I also am very sign adverse. I hate the visual clutter from that. I think it's ways. I've suggested in the past painting them on the street, and so I was very pleased to see that here tonight. I think that's a great solution as well. Data collection, it's been raised as a concern and a potential roadblock to doing anything, the concern over anecdotal data. So I would encourage you to consider that. Yes, it's an expense, but if you want to be able to speak to that and not have that concern, that's the only way you're going to be able to eliminate it. Citizen collected data isn't the same. These signs, perhaps, that Eli said fortuitously just showed up in the mail might be able to provide us that at the same time. Radar signs, I've mentioned this in the past as well. Let's check with the sheriff's office. I know where I've lived in the past, where I work, frequently they have trailer mounted signs they'll bring around your community. We're paying them for a service. Let's not spend money on something we can have them put on our streets and move around. And that's temporary clutter, right? You can even rent them. There's a place down a Bracket that I called and they have it available. So Caltrans, I reached out to them. They said they might be willing to loan them. This is all things we can do to save some money. Yeah, that's it. Thanks. Appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Other public comments? I don't see any other.
Can I just add something? I just want to reiterate what Aaron just said. At one point, the county was lending us signs too. So I think there are some ways for us temporary solutions at no cost or at least minimum cost. So.
Yeah, so I think. Okay.
Yeah, I want to ask one more question. Talking about the speed and the bumps that we have out there. I noted that Blue Lake just pulled out their speed bumps and put in speed humps recently. What happens to those speed bumps that they have? What happens to the leftover pieces they have in Blue Lake? Does it go somewhere, or is there some way of getting something like that for that maybe at a lower cost of being able to use it?
Was that a question to me?
Yes, well, Josh, I was curious. You might know what happens to things like that if there's ways of getting some of these products.
They go on Craigslist or
something like that. What happens to speed bumps from Blue Lake that they had out for such a long time?
Yeah, I do not know, but we could certainly, it'd be a matter of reaching out to the city or their public works department to find out what happened to them, why they
so we
took
could
them out,
check on that.
and where they went.
Yeah, follow up. We'll follow up with that.
That's a good idea. I'm going to take it back from the council to public comments because I noticed I may have missed someone. Anna, did you have a public comment before I pull it back to us?
Yes, I do have a public comment. I am really in favor of doing any sort of data analysis, even if it costs money. I think it really gives us a solid foundation to work off of. A permanent sign would be great because we could have a before and after when we add mitigations, which makes me happy that we would know, hey, we've actually changed the situation on this street and improved it by X%. I've been doing research on speed humps, and there's the data on whether it increases or decreases speeds varies wildly. It could decrease speeds by 72% or actually increase driver speeds, which I assume is just a town full of raised trucks. So yeah, any data would be great. And I am really in favor of non-permanent solutions and anything on the road. As we live in a beautiful town and people are more likely to be looking at a tree or the ocean rather than a sign, and having something right in front of their face on the street seems like a really great way to focus their attention that it's 15 miles an hour. When I moved to this town, I can tell you for the first 9 months, I had no idea what the speed limits were. So that's how effective the signage was. And it wasn't until later that I was like, oh, wait, it's 15 miles an hour. That's weird. So I think we definitely need to work on ways to get people's attention right in front of their faces. But yeah, all these solutions that are low cost and non-permanent, and studying setting what happens in town would be fantastic, because then we could have a baseline and then know whether or not we've made a positive impact with any changes.
Okay, thank you. Are there other public comments that I missed? Okay. All right. So back to the council. So I will reiterate that this is, the agenda item is a continued discussion decision regarding traffic calming for View, Ocean, and Underwood. We've kind of broadened the scope. We may want to also have a future discussion that's a little broader about what we want to do, or just, you know, we've already made the decision about the other plan. Maybe we need to prioritize some things. But I'd love to hear kind of, I mean, what I've heard from the discussion so far. Let me try to kind of encapsulate it for the council, and then you guys tell me if maybe you know have a different perspective. But it sounded like the council was in favor of doing some low-cost, short-term things to slow traffic on these streets, but also wanted data collection. What I'm not sure about is we talked about data collection in a traffic analysis, and we talked data collection with the radar signs. And then we also talked about doing some painting and some sign updating. I guess my thought is maybe the least expensive way to go and capture the data is with the radar speed signs, which kind of solve two problems. But I would like to hear what you guys think, and you know what specifically you'd like to see done. And anyone can start.
Yeah, I'm interested in if there's a low cost alternative. You know, if we can get one or two of these accountable, and as long as it's cost effective to move them around town, I still think that those streets that were identified are the ones that we have to focus on. But I would urge us to act tonight. I mean, I'll make a motion if the discussion goes this way. But to really collect the data, and so we know what we're talking about.
Okay.
I'd like to find out if these things work as well as a study. I don't know what the difference would be. Effective at our study through what the study Josh is talking about. I'm like the house and the study, and what these will do if they're good, make sure we're getting the best quality. Or I think this would be a great idea. So I think they're saying, you know, I like the idea of a study to get the best. So I want to make sure we do some research to know what.
And Josh, I guess it was just to clarify that for Jack, it's speed and volume of traffic in the analysis, correct?
Yeah, so it would be the collection of that raw data plus analyzing it and doing the statistical analysis and you know, presenting those results. Yep.
And I think in the cost benefit analysis, we should, I mean, what Josh is proposing, let's say, is $10,000. It's a package. I was wondering, could we save a few bucks by giving Josh some data with, you know, low cost alternatives? But I still see Josh playing a role in looking at the data. I don't know what to do with all the data. Right, we still need someone with his expertise to do the data. So if it's going to cost, you know, $500 less, but we have to do all this leasing and whatnot, and still pay Josh to do the analysis, let's just that's all. I mean, if we can save a few bucks, I'm all for it. But it's all about having a professional look at the data that comes in.
Yeah, my concern, because I know exactly what you're saying, because there's more than just the capturing of the data. There's the reporting of the data and the analysis. Yeah. And that's what we will be missing when we capture it with the radar signs. But the advantage of the radar signs data capture is that it's over a period of time. So like if we do this and it's 7 days and it's the wrong 7 days, or we need to do it again, I mean, it would quickly add up. So that's why I'm kind of, but I hear you. So maybe we can do a little more. I don't know, Eli, do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I was just going to mention, if we were going to do the 7 days, we're going to have to wait until the summer. Want something quicker, then, you know, maybe the radars. Maybe Josh can just take some of that.
Yeah, maybe it's not an or, maybe it's a both then.
Well, but right? Yes, the summer is important, but again, I think it's really, it's the day-to-day stuff with the school activity and a weekend I mean, it's impossible to plan this, but let's face it, the difference between a nice weekend and a rainy weekend is noticeable, right? I think we're a smart enough group of folks that if we have a 7-day period, we can extrapolate like, okay, that wasn't a weekend where we know people are coming from around the county to walk their dogs because it wasn't the first sunny day in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? We can right. You know what I'm talking about? We can understand the 7 days that are captured and then make assumptions based on this was a week. The school activities, pick a week when the school has an event. I don't think we have to wait till summer. And if we do it in the summer, then we're missing the regular, like when all the delivery trucks are coming, when all the school drop-offs are happening, and just the regular day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, I ask, once you get such data, what does it really tell you? We know we have a problem. We know we need to improve things. I'm not against getting the data. I'm just against, I think, waiting for the data before we do some of these improvements, which, just experientially are quite obviously needed.
I think what I'm thinking of is, if I were to look out my window at a certain time, I might have 1% spread out over 7 days. And then we could say, well, there's ebbs and flows of activity, traffic. It's sort of the blind guys all looking at the elephant, and someone says an elephant's a skinny little rope and someone else says the big trunk, right? We need to know what we're looking at. And that's why the 7-day, I think, period is useful, because it's going to include a couple of weekend days and it's difference. And I'm assuming these things are 24/7, right? Right, Josh? So we know
it's a 24-hour count.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that perhaps one of the reasons for doing the study is to understand the flow and traffic patterns on the various streets to determine where we invest money in additional, speed humps and some of the more bigger ticket items. But I completely agree with Councilor Breckenridge that we don't want to wait for the study to take action. So I thought that's why I said maybe it's an and. So maybe it's the study and we do the radar signs inexpensively to help slow traffic in the meantime. And we check the sign inventory and fix up the signs as needed. And we paint the street as needed, the speed limit. So do, 3 or 4 of those things that will help calm traffic in the meantime while we simultaneously do the study. And that's what I kind of thought I heard you guys saying, but
I probably had Josh there. Josh, you have an idea of this study that we're talking about. What would you recommend? So when would you think we could soon do? What's our timeline look like? And what the study?
I picked up 80% of that, so let me try again. So as you guys have mentioned, there's kind of twofold we're looking at, right? We're looking at the distribution through town plus speeds. I think whether you do the distribution now or if you do the study now or during summer, it's still valuable data to understand how people are traversing through town, whether they're using primarily Trinity Street or whether they're, how much volume is getting diverted onto Ocean and View. I personally don't think there's a reason to wait for that. I think you'd get good data now. Same for speeds, quite frankly. I think you get a good representative set of data now.
Maybe we could do a few days now and a few days in summer as a follow-on study. That would be one option.
And we
could, the costs.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say the costs do vary. So the costs for the counts are from, firms that specialize in this work. And so if you break it up and say do 2 days now and 2 days later, the cost would fluctuate a little bit.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it might be like 15,000 or something to do three days now, 3 days then or something.
Can this be started right away?
Yeah, timing wise. So I did ask them when they could get going. When I asked them last week, they basically said they were a couple weeks out. So,
All right.
relatively quickly.
What do we think, counselors?
I mean, I'm happy to move to make a motion that we approve the expenditure for study, 7-day study. That's where I agree that we.
Sure. What? I did have a member of the public raise their hand. We are in council deliberation at the moment. Is it important to, okay. I'm going to reopen to public comments briefly for Aaron to add.
Very much.
Into that.
If we're going to do a traffic analysis in town, this is not all of town. So let's find out. There's Himalaya, Berry, there's other streets that are not here that have expressed concern. So I would encourage you as you do this.
Frontage, for example.
In frontage,
yeah.
Underwood going, let's get everybody represented. Let's not do a study now and then realize we've forgotten something and then have to pay a huge fee again when we could maybe pay a little bit more right now and get. Before the motion was made, I felt that was important.
And that's, I'm happy to amend it because the list of streets had Underwood as optional. I hear what you're at. Thank you for me that. I believe it was Himalaya, was all. That because that's. Sorry. So.
Yeah, so maybe we say that, it's the motion is to do a study and then we'll review the list of streets and confirm, or staff can help us with that.
Should it be a
Yeah, and I can.
separate?
Yes.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to give you some additional information. So for additional streets, so the 10,000 that the cost listed there, so that was for the 5 locations. Additional streets to get the counts alone, it's basically $1,000 per additional street for 7-day counts.
Okay. Would you consider amending the motion to include the? I'm not sure what was the term. Can you go back to the slide that showed the? Painting on the street and the sign.
I was actually asking that be a separate motion. Really different. Okay. You could do. I don't have my head wrapped around it like other folks do.
Yeah.
Expenditure and then maybe entertain.
Okay, so we'll start with traffic study. Councilor Ladwig has made a motion to move ahead with the 7-day study. Is that right, Steve?
7 days. So let me clarify now. The 7-day study, including Underwood and is Himalaya or Berry or what's the?
I think they were mostly concerned with frontage.
Frontage. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because that's where the kids were walking to school, and that's certainly So yeah. So that would have added an additional 2,000. I personally am. The motion.
And I would second that motion. I would consider maybe the split for the 2 seasons, but you know what? I'll let that go. So I would second as is. All right. So let's all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have 4. And Jack, are you can say nay. Okay. And 1 nay so that motion passes. And then the next phase.
I changed my vote.
Oh, okay.
I want to abstain.
Okay.
I'm just not sure that that's where I would put our money.
Okay, but not sure about the expense? Yeah.
Data is always great, but I'm just not sure it's needed.
12,000 now and 12,000 in 6 months.
Yeah, I would not do that. I would not be in favor of that personally. But I agree, because I agree with you. I think I agree with you.
One time.
Yeah, one time, and that would be,
I have a
But
question.
would we know if these traffic calming measures were working if we didn't do it now and then a second time? You want to have 2 different measurements that it's working.
That's a good point. Okay, so process wise, we took a vote. I need a little help, staff. So we took a vote. The vote.
Yeah, the vote ended up being 3 yes, 1 no, and 1 abstain.
And just to be clear, the motion was for one 7-day study on those 7 streets. So or 6 streets. Sorry.
Jack has a good point, though, that you want to be before and after.
Yeah, which is my big question, which is what do we really learn that we don't already know?
I think what Josh was really good at clarifying is we're going to get a sense of where the traffic is at a given time. We have a sense of where the volume is. Exactly.
So for example, if you found out that Edwards has, people going routinely 50 miles an hour between this hour and this hour, and Ocean only has 2 people going, 20% over the speed limit, Ocean might not be prioritized. So I think the thing the data allows us to do is prioritize where we put our additional spend. So the reason, I'm balked at the price, I'll be honest, but I was kind of like, well, I can spend 12,000 here, or I can go spend, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 around town doing things that aren't effective. But Councilor Tuttle has a good point, though. You do need, you need to see if it works.
I actually don't think we need that much. I think what we're getting is just a one-time idea of where things are going. That's where we concentrate our effort. And I think we have to do follow-up on our own, try to see what we're getting from the community in terms of what they're saying. I don't know if we need to do a second one. So I think just one time started on
that 10,000, we could get these really nice.
I agree with that too.
Painting done for $10,000 on 3 streets. Mm-hmm. And then our neighbors could tell us, because we watch our cars go by our house every day, we could tell you if there's down.
All right. Does anyone want to change their vote? Because we have voted. Okay. Then the motion does pass to do one study. But I appreciate all of the concerns and the discussion, because I think these decisions are always difficult, especially when, there's investment involved. So let's now go, I guess.
I just wanted to clarify everything. So, Gabe, what do you have? So we've included, initially there were the 5 locations at 10,000, and then we added Underwood and frontage. Josh, was that 2,000 for one more street or 2 more streets?
1,000 per street, what Josh said.
Oh,
yeah, I think for those 7 locations, I think it would be our goal would be to make that less, but 12,000 or less.
So 12,000 for 7 streets.
Are we saying 7 day? Is that
7 days, 7 streets?
7 days. Yeah.
12,000.
All right. So the second part of this discussion, then, to Councilor Breckenridge's point, is: do we want to also move for any additional painting or sign replacement updates, those kind of things? The radar signs.
Josh, could you put that slide back up? The one that showed the painting? Yeah, that. Yes, that one. Thank you.
I would be totally for that right now.
It's relatively low.
Why it's important is I drive really fast down the streets until I remember I got to slow down.
Yeah.
And that would make me slow down.
Yeah. Same here.
Josh, I'm curious. It looks like, I can see all the striping and stuff. Can that be done immediately? What does it take to actually put that striping down and make it look like? Is it just, do we do it without just put those stripes down, or is there other things that
I
way
think
too?
it would be a lot.
It's basically, this would be thermoplastic pavement marking. So, like I said, there's sort of 2 approaches. One is that we could look to see if the public works staff has the ability to do some or all of this. Alternatively, I'd be happy to see if I can get a quote from some contractors and actually come back with some prices for you.
That's great.
And what streets are we talking about? Just out of curiosity. Right now, we're just looking at view.
Ocean and View.
That's Ocean on the right.
I knew that. So Ocean and View.
Is that what you're suggesting right now, Josh?
I mean, these are potential improvements, like I said. So it would be, my initial thought would be to do actually 2 locations on each street, one on the north, one on the south. for both Ocean and View, and then consider doing actual edge line striping on View, which currently it doesn't have anything.
So I would make a motion at this point to acquire or lease or borrow radar, at least one radar sign that we could rotate, temporary, to just kind of remind people and make, create awareness of the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, and to acquire and install the thermoplastic lines presented here, and to look at those 15-mile-an-hour signs, see if they need to be relocated, made larger, or whatever. Sorry, I don't have a technical comment there. Is there anything I'm missing on that motion?
The way he's got them placed up there on either side of the wider stripe.
Yes, yeah, so that's a good idea. Okay,
What streets you talking about? All
at this point, I guess the motion would be for Ocean and View, because that, I think, was where we were. We didn't include, I was going to say Ocean and View, not Underwood. I didn't think Underwood needed it at this point.
And if I remember correctly, a lot of the comments from the folks living, all over town was that Ocean and View present the greatest challenge because they're the narrowest streets.
Right.
So if my memory serves correct, then
seems where we got most of the comments. So that would be the motion if you guys, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're just talking about the striping on the sides.
Oh, yes, on the side.
And that's it, right?
Yeah, let's add the side edge line.
The edge lines, the signs, the
Yeah.
speed limit signs, but none of the other markings at all at this time.
Yeah.
None of what other mark?
Well, they've got things for the bicycles.
Oh, the bicycles.
No, you're just talking about.
That's a big outline.
Yeah, we don't want them. Not yet.
I mean,
Yeah, but you're just talking about the striping ones.
I would also like to see those radar signs measure it before we put them on, and then we can measure it after. And we can analyze that on data.
Yeah, and compare it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that I think hopefully I captured it, unless I missed something.
And if that actually slowed down traffic, we can then maybe open it up to Edwards or Edgewood or Himalaya.
Yes, if it's effective, absolutely. All right, so that's the motion.
Yeah, why don't you just repeat it to make sure the signage, I was trying to be clear on the signage. Is it just the sign saying the speed limit?
Just this picture is.
Yeah.
So it's not a radar sign, because I know radar was meant.
Well, no, so I want the radar sign too. So the motion I'm making so far, at least, is I'll reverse it. So I'm making a motion to do this, what is being presented on this slide, which is accept the bicycle piece. So it's the edge lines, the thermoplastic, speed indicator on the road signs, the two 15-mile-an-hour signs on each side, as presented here. And I think we should either buy, rent, or borrow at least one, if not three, radar speed signs that we can move to different locations so that other streets like frontage can have the advantage of something like that, and Underwood, and the streets that aren't getting this. Does that make sense? So it's both.
How many you want? Should one? Maybe two.
How many radars?
Yeah.
I'd be fine with one and rotate it, but I guess if we got to buy one, get one free or something.
Can I think I saw those at Costco. Can I recommend that you, instead of making it that open staff, to put the radar signs, like maybe make the motion to approve the striping and whatnot, come back with radar options? Because the difference between buying, renting, and borrowing it,
That is significant.
and I'm not comfortable.
Okay.
Have
All right, I'm happy to do this. I'll amend my motion. My motion is to do the example striping, markings, and signs that Josh has presented on Ocean and View, and for staff to return with a recommendation, maybe as part of a staff report, if not an agenda item, on what recommendations for the right radar sign approach.
Second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
I almost got
All right, is there anything else on this traffic calming for now that feels left on the table?
Yeah, just what I know Jack is concerned about Underwood and that particularly that curve.
Right. Something about that curve is if we all walk on that curve, the dangerous part is the blockage that there is a bush that basically blocks the traffic that's coming this way and that way. So maybe we could have direct staff to mention that to the property owners to cut back the brush. And that would actually help alleviate that my major concern on that blind corner.
And maybe one of those radar blinkers would be potentially very useful there.
Right.
Because it's like, hey, bud.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think we want to rotate. And so, yes, so we don't need to vote on that. That sounds like a good recommendation. So,
And if I could just, this is only because I live in the, right by the, what is it called? The rain garden. A previous owner moved my property line well into the city right away. So I have fence and a vine that is lovely and destructive in terms of traffic flow. So if we do anything about that traffic circle, give me another 6 months. I'm going to move that fence back. Not this week. But I just don't want people to get too worked up about that rain garden because that fence is about 5 or 6 feet into the city right away. It's almost a lane, for God's sake. So anyway, I want to calm people down about that ridiculous.
You're not the only one.
No, I'm not in any way saying I'm the only one, but I'm the only one willing to do something about it. So, yeah.
That's very generous of you. It's
ridiculous.
It's a lovely.
It's a lovely flower.
All right. Okay. So, and I do think we're going to continue to work on the overall plan that was voted on by the City Council January 2022. I would say the only thing I would add to that is just, in a way, we just need to kind of prioritize because there's just a lot of recommendations in there. So that may have to come back before the council, but maybe staff can, in the next few months, we can talk about prioritization. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your contribution and your patience as we work through this. Our next topic then is another popular one. This is update and discussion regarding public outreach and awareness options for city leash laws and various announcements around that.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn this over because he's been working with the radio station and
great.
Thanks. Last meeting, I was looking at the minutes here. One of the things that we decided, we talked about this potential advertising, kind of unique. I was approached by AK Radio, Thunder Country, a guy by the name of Colin Vance, who is here legally. And at the conclusion of the last meeting, we had a discussion that identified this proposal as being something that could work for Trinidad, but there was some identity concerns, how the rest of the town would feel about it. And I think that the group, what I noted in the minutes was that staff was asked to develop the concept a little bit more and broaden the scope of messages and make that more clear what could be delivered in this campaign. Because we were focused on pets, how pet etiquette in town, leash laws, but then, of course, had this conversation after our traffic calming discussion, or before our traffic calming discussion, and someone, I think her name was Rebecca on Berry Road in Malaya, who said, hey, maybe we can bring in the drive slow in Trinidad concept, as one of our topics to fill that donut concept, if you can remember our discussion. And then what Colin brought up to me today, was that there's some edible food waste discussions happening. And I believe Linda Wise from Ecology may have recently added some information, public information to the radio about something of great interest to the entire county, the entire region, which also affects Trinidad. And that's something that we need to address as well. So I think when I was talking to Colin today, I'm like, I don't have a lot for the meeting packet. I wanted to bring back something a little more developed. And he says, well, hey, we're gathering information right now. That's what we've been doing this month. And I appreciate that, helping me out there. And he also said that he would be happy to join us, elaborate a little bit more, because we don't have it fully developed yet, but things are kind of bouncing out at us as we speak and as the months has gone by. So this would give us an opportunity to further develop that. But I wanted to introduce you to Colin, let him say a few things because he wasn't here last month. And I wasn't able to answer all those questions, although I did the best I could to represent, his proposal. And I don't see Betsy here tonight. But the other thing we discussed, and I think I want to develop a little bit more this coming month, is potentially having a small focus group that can help a business member from the community, possibly a council member, staff member. Paul's going to be doing a lot of the work, counting the pavement. And he has had a couple of things that we talked about today that I thought would be worth mentioning to the council. So I don't believe there's any real action we're expecting tonight, but these brainstorming sessions are always really good for staff to glean feedback for what, where we're headed with this, if this is the direction we want. So I'll go ahead and introduce Colin here, who has been my partner in crime on this one, and let him say a few things about what he does over there.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. My name is Colin Vance, and I should thank Gabe for putting on this a few months ago, probably midsummer, and proposed, and I tried to find a contact and everything. Mid-September, I went on vacation, and Gabe was really awesome and proposed it to you guys while I was gone. So now I'm back to clarify anything that I can. So the impetus from this is that I've got a whole campaign going with Blue. We also work with, Eureka and Fortuna, Chambers, or the city. So we've had really, and Gabe, so when I approached Gabe to begin with, Gabe was familiar with the radio campaign that we've been doing on our 3 stations, which are KINS 106.3, Kika, as he mentioned, Thunder Country, and then we have Easy 95. 3 stations locally. We're a really local radio station. Any of you guys familiar with any at all? A little bit. Yeah, so I proposed this back to Blue Lake the end of last year or this year. Basically ran all summer months, and I've got a slight different formulation for this. The way that same price point, but the way this, I would like to have a more consistent, like weekly presence. So what I did with Blue Lake was we set aside weeks. There would be quiet spots when there weren't events happening, because the difference with you guys is Blue Lake needs to bring people to them, for tax revenue and all this. And stimulate the businesses. Here, I know there's kind of like we already have, maybe need to bring in a ton of people to teach how to, manage their dogs, how to drive on their streets and everything like that. So then there's always these side route messaging types of things. Like we're sitting there, it's all messaging, basically what you're trying to do with the signs. So that's all we're doing with radio is messaging. So now, I don't know how far did you guys get into the actual breakdown? I don't want to back up. So
Get too deep into the breakdown, but what we did was I played the productions that you.
Okay, so it's creative stuff that you got into. Okay.
And I mentioned that there was a cost and that the city would be taking on a specific amount of that cost for the framework, and then you would be out counting the pavement, so to speak, and seeing if any of the businesses or any of the chambers or the museum or any of the other groups wanted to get involved if we didn't have, let's just say, we didn't want to run it 5 days a week, 7 days a week.
Exactly. And that's kind of the learning curve that we did with Blue Lake is we ran them solid weeks. And then fill in with the merchants. So what I'm proposing with you guys is we have maybe 3 to 4 different messaging topics, beach etiquette and dog etiquette, which ties in with your leash need to address that. But also, okay, cool, leash and dog behavior, beach safety, like that. But also, city behavior, getting into how we drive. So there's message number 2 that can be on with at least a couple pieces of those. And we don't want to lecture, obviously. We're not trying to lecture people. We want to share a voice of authenticity, that it's not necessarily a scripted voice. We want it to be taken seriously. That's all that you guys are talking about, is having things taken seriously. You want your city, streets to be taken seriously, the safety to be taken seriously. So that's all the messaging is. Taken seriously, take it seriously. So there's an opportunity for you guys to get that message across week in, week out, and not every day during the week is what I'm proposing. And so it would maybe be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or maybe it was Thursday. I didn't think maybe it was, but a few days out of the week for the city's messages that can run for, on a under basis for the amount of time proposed. Then the buy-ins come with purchasing the week where you're not there, but then you're being like augmented and sort of bolstered basically by a merchant speaking up for Trinidad. Now, the merchant may have different interests. They might be saying, come to spend your money to locals. So, but that would be the business's prerogative, of what the message would be inside. And without getting too much into the creative of it, he mentioned the donut ad. You guys know what a donut ad is? Probably not.
Remind us.
Yeah. So it's basically an open and a close, and with a 60-second production, it gives you ample time. Most commercials are 30 seconds. If you commercial, the radio, generally you'll notice, you'll either receive it or you'll put it down. So in the middle, the filling is where I'm proposing putting the message of the city, either the dog messages like we're talking, or the merchant messages. And the kicker with the creative is getting in and out without sounding snarky or, kind of anger at people, lecturing people. So in the production that I threw a production together for you guys, which you guys heard. Yeah. So it was just an example of in and out with that. Basically it sounds to me like the message, the very, very, very bare bones of the message is visit our town safely. It's not like you guys don't, I can't imagine anybody would want to not invite people to their town, beautiful place like this. And we have, I actually wrote a question down. I was curious if anybody knew, like how many people come into town for certain amounts of. So it's really cool hearing you guys talking about a counter and everything like that for what, for your traffic on the street.
Yeah, last time we got some questions. You weren't here, so I'll just share. This is one of the questions I think was the demographics that the radio show. Yeah. Kind of who are your listeners? A bit was one of the questions, and then I think the businesses said perhaps we needed to have sort of a brand for the city or a theme, and that was why Gabe suggested maybe getting a little small group together, because that's something the city doesn't have. We don't have a tagline. I think Aaron at one point suggested a tagline.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of, and so anyway, so if you have some thoughts about it, like I don't listen to radio a lot. I think Councilor Breckenridge said the same in the last meeting, but Councilor Ladwig says absolutely everywhere you go. So it's a mix. I mean, I listen to K-Hum sometimes, but anyway, so.
The segment that we would be going for, or who is our entire audience? Is that kind of?
I mean, there's a targeted audience, which I understand is a subset of your total audience. I guess more the target that you carve out of your.
So the scheduling would be across all 3 stations. So we'd be measuring, and that's the other thing with the financing of it is. We will match, cities, things for children, elderly people, whatever. We will match budget. So we're happy to extend that. So the power of this is leveraging a 4 times, a 3-to-1 match.
Excuse me, a 3-to-1 match, meaning 3 stations? Is that?
No, 3 your budget. So if you're, so what I'm proposing is you guys spending $6,000, and basically if it's a $1,200 scheduling that you're paying for, it's going to be $4,800 actually value scheduled. So the 1 is the one that you pay, match is the other. So 1,200 times 4 basically. So you'll be paying the 12 and then value scheduling 48. So it's a match. And then that extends over.
And so my question about the demographic.
Question, please ask me a question.
Sorry, no, the listener, it's really, I mean, I could probably boil it down. It's like, are most of your listeners folks in Humboldt County, or are they visitors?
Oh, absolutely. We
Humboldt County.
Oh, absolutely. And so a big thing that would be really awesome is inviting people from down in Fortuna. I mean, how often do you think a lot of people in Fern, plenty of people that here, so increasing a couple of those people. We're not only speaking to, tourists who like wandering and looking, we're definitely speaking to the low. I mean, a tourist is something about 50 miles and more or less or more. So in a way we're talking to like local tourists, And then with the demographic, we are 35 plus mainly, and that varies per station. Our easy 95 format is going to be 35 plus, mostly female demographic. And then 65. It gets a little younger too. Those are all kind of up in the air. And then the news and information is definitely an older demographic as well. So we're not messaging young surfing, people. We're messaging people that are coming to.
Can I ask something real quick? Colin mentioned something to me that I thought was interesting part of the conversation. It had to do with, I think he had a conversation with a business member that the Jason Sell or somebody.
Oh yeah. So getting to the businesses. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking about how, like, when you mentioned the word match, how this we were asked by the council to, how can we get the word out, the outreach? And then I heard at the last meeting, like this multimodal concept where our website's speaking, people might be hearing it on the radio, and we're putting it out in print. Now, how these things all tie together, and we've got all these opportunities now where we're hearing from the public saying people don't drive slow, they're not aware of things, they're less aware of their how they impact people on a regular basis. So now we're looking at an opportunity here. To utilize this media, and the city being sort of the first brick in this radio media campaign. But then I guess what Colin was mentioning, and what I liked about it, is that we do our part, but then he does the rest. He'll go out there and pound the pavement and get other buy-in. And the buy-in, and I'll let Colin speak to this, was kind of interesting when he said it. It's like, the business member that he went to go talk to, had maybe his own thoughts at first, his initial thoughts, but then you mentioned, well, the city might be actually sending a message and utilizing this media, and he perked up a little bit. It's like, oh, really? Because
they were interested in the partnership between them.
Exactly. if our message is, the donut is saying one thing, whatever that brand might be, and the city has its own message embedded in that, well, business members can then kind of ride on the coattails.
Along with the budget of it as well. So the city by the city authorizing a budget to run a schedule of ads and then fill in a matched budget at the same. Think of it a bunch of time set aside that you're doing by authorizing the payments for the schedule. The businesses are going to, reap the benefit of having that same schedule. $300 that a business, if I were to go to a business and say, well, what's your budget? It's not going to go very far, but multiplying that by 4, turning that into 1,200 exposure is a big benefit. And it kind of makes a kumbaya with everybody as people or city and businesses, Chamber of Commerce, maybe museum, maybe people, entities, groups, merchants in the community that maybe did not work together as much. It becomes a real positive thing because it's just messaging to come into the studio. So I just, for reference, it's like, this was, all the businesses Blue Lake that I was able to, in the little town, so there was only maybe 1 or 2 that I wasn't able to bring on. A lot of it also is, I know you guys have the Blessing of the Fleet coming up. Is that right? So it's like event recognition, you know what I mean, is a huge thing. And so I started thinking about, we had this huge weekend flies coming after me.
Yeah, we have the same fly has been following us from room to room. I'm going to ask you to just pause for 1 second.
Yes.
Because I will start getting a side eye here pretty soon from the counselors as we started a little bit early this afternoon. But let me just take a pause and see what questions the council might have for you, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd like to see something in writing in terms of a proposal. A lot of these numbers are sort of flowing through my head now. Out some other orifice.
Yeah. Were you able to pass anything on that I had given that first one?
At the last meeting, it was in the packet, and I agree, like some of the concepts that you were talking about, the matching is complicated, but I think if I say this correctly, we can bring it back, because we're going to just kind of bring this here tonight so you can going. So to know that it hasn't fell off the radar, I'm just going to bring it back real quick, but I think if I remember correctly, it was the city's foundation. $6,000.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That would get us 6 months, or maybe spread out a little bit more. Is that what you're kind of thinking?
It will do 5 months. Yeah.
Spread that out. Is that to be consecutive 5 months, or is it 5 months total? If we did like 3 days a week or 5 days a week, depending on what time of the year it was and what we had going on.
Yeah, there's flexibility in it. Yeah, absolutely.
Anything additional, like if a business member wanted to get involved, they had a budget of $1,000 or $500, that's on them. They just kind of buy in and use this format, correct? That we're developing with their own message. So the city sits on its own. We're not subsidizing businesses' messaging or anything. We got our own time, our own messages, but we're creating sort of like a.
But you're opening up an opportunity for these businesses to receive the same match.
We're not taking that responsibility.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Funds from the city to
have a consistent
things that we're maybe having a problem reaching.
Well, and also inviting people nicely to town, as well. The town, spend all your money, do all this. It can be a complete message. Really, okay, the example that I want to use is Linda Wise, like you said, Gabe this morning, that I got to the office this morning. On the way, my boss, Brian, was talking with Linda Wise and about solving problems. And that's really all we're doing here is solving problems. So the problem being the food waste. Right? Like how to train the public, how to get everybody on board with not compost their food at home, to know how to do this. And also there's requirements of WISE's, ecology. So that they have to do these things if they're going to fulfill the program. So the public needs to be taught and trained, in a sense. Those expectations are going to be sort of managed by the messaging, so, and that's all we're doing but Linda's big point was it has to be a consistent message. So if you want to run like 2 weeks of like a cool commercial, do anything. So the idea is, Blue Lake is going to renew a contract, and we're going to keep doing this because they got results from it.
Right.
They got response, which then turned into results by more people at their events and whatnot. So that's the idea. Is just is consistency with messaging, and I encourage you guys like radio.
Yeah.
Radio's
all right. Are there questions for Colin? Okay.
I would just be interested in next steps. I mean, it's interesting what I'm hearing.
I'm going to go to public comment and we'll talk about next steps. I just wanted to say, I guess my perspective on it is, it seems like a really interesting marketing campaign for the city and businesses in partnership. I'm not completely clear in my head if this solves the problem of, people having their dogs off leash.
Well,
but I mean, it doesn't mean that it's not a good idea, and it may be worth a try. So I'm going to kind of just hold that thought. If we did do something like this, we would want to echo it on the website, and we would probably use some of the audio clips and, do other things, a lot of this other stuff that we've talked about, leash lending libraries that we started, and just, we're going to do a pet parade on, I should put a plug for that, October 29th at noon, pet parade starting at the town hall. Go pet parade. We're trying to, my idea, so I'm going to put a plug for it. But the idea is to show that pets can be friendly and nice and cute, and they don't always bite you. So hopefully,
and that's all super good.
Fingers crossed that doesn't turn into a pet brawl. But anyway, sorry, it's getting late. I'm going to go to
Can we get some public comment about this?
Seems like public comment. Anna, you still have your hand raised. I'm not sure if it's on this topic. Is it? Okay, please.
Hi. Here's my pet parade. She's asleep.
If she's going to be in the parade, she's got to have a costume.
Yeah, she will. She's a local lover of everybody. Anyway, I, as a dog owner and a screenwriter and marketing professional, I have a couple of questions. When you get a dog, you obviously want it to be happy and healthy and not get into brawls. I've had a 75-pound Malinois, so I know how challenging that can be when you have a dog with a high prey drive and how terrified you are that it might attack something. I'm also aware that the attacks that we've had in town have been actually not related to dogs being off leash, but more getting out of things. And Indy actually was attacked by a dog that was on leash, that the owner was not holding it in front of the eatery. So I'm very aware of the consequences of what happens when things go wrong with dogs, but there is an assumption of risk that when you have an animal, things won't always go to plan, and they may not always react how you want, and you put your love and energy into them. And I guess my question is, what are the messages that we would like to send to local dog owners? And I know a lot of them, and they obviously love this community, and they volunteer, and they love their animals, and they're very invested in the health of this community and of their animals and all of them in town. How can we make sure that the message that we're sending doesn't make it seem like we are sort of insinuating that the local dog community is irresponsible? Because that's sort of the message that I've been getting the past few months, is that we're not really welcome, that the dogs are pests. And like I said, my dog is super sweet. I've had an aggressive dog, And so I'm a little concerned that we're focusing too much on the very few outlying dogs who are poorly behaved and owners who may not care versus, like 95% of the owners who are very invested in this community and the health of their own dogs and the rest of the community as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And yeah, I think we would want to be very positive in any of our approaches to messaging.
That's what I would think. We definitely, story is great, authenticity, real voice, getting away from scripts. Scripts are fine, but having a voice of Trinidad, whoever that might be, that this is getting into the creative. Okay, so but I'll do it. So voice, it would you think of it like the narrator, and kind of like the answer. So then who I would bring in the studio, I would maybe ask, it could be her. I don't know. You guys could all decide on who it could be. There's different ways we can go about this. We can have I can kind of do an interview style. Gabe, what's your take on what a good steward of a pet in a town would be? What's your take? Anyways, and then glean the positive.
A lot of different creative approaches, and that would be really interesting to explore. So I hear you that I think we've taken the point and we could go positively direct it. And so now we're going to take a pause and bring it back to the council from the public. We have a very kind of a what's the word? We have a protocol for running these meetings that I need to stick to. So I'm just going to pause you for a second. And I've asked for public comments back to the council. And I want to just get your thoughts on, are we looking for a decision tonight on this? I heard Councilor Breckenridge say perhaps she would like something in writing. So I'd kind of like to hear what you.
I think a proposal. At first, thank you very much for coming and sharing your craft with. I think a proposal that's sort of the financial side of things, but also for all of us to weigh in at our next meeting on what, let's say those 5 topics are, right? So what's going to be the jelly filling in all those donuts is what I'm right. We've got leash, we've got, just this call. And I really appreciate what Anna said about, we're trying to focus on the positive, and we're trying to ask folks to be full and encouraging to come to Trinidad. We could come up with, between all of the comments we've had, certainly Gabe, Eli, and yourself, and maybe give us a proposal that includes 5 of these potential topics that would run 5 months. See, just so I can wrap my head around what does this look like?
Yeah, absolutely.
How long does each message run? And so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And that's just not to be answered here. I'm just saying that's my 2 cents.
Gotcha. Oh yeah. I'm sorry. That's you guys. Yeah.
We do love our process.
Yeah. No. Pardon me.
Let's try. So, Dr. any thoughts on that?
Great.
Okay.
Now, so we can decide what we want.
Okay. All right. So Dr. Grace, Katie, Jack Hoser. All right. And Jack Hoser's not. I agree as well. It doesn't have to be, I don't think it has to be elaborate. I mean, just a page of.
Yeah. Oh, well, I have this. I didn't know if you had passed that on.
And
and the nice thing is in the packet then for the council meeting, right? It's so much easier to talk about something that's already presented to you than to come with. It's so open ended. It might take us an hour just to get to a list of things that is manageable and agreeable. Yeah. So if we have a proposal of topics and a proposal of cost structure and all this other things, then everybody can come and say, wow, that triggered me to also say, I want to recommend, something about bike safety or whatever. So
and I to kind of tack on to Steve's point, as I said earlier, I feel like this could be a little broader. So maybe we call this like a public awareness campaign. And then that includes traffic calming, dogs, and then, yeah, whatever the other three are. So because it is a little bit broader than just, beach laws and stuff.
Yeah. The thing with the dog issues, it sort of got lost in the shuffle here. And at this point, I'm not even sure where it is in my own thinking. So maybe we could consider it for
bring that back.
Yeah. Separate from this entirely, even though there was a bit of an overlap.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. We
Thank
really
you guys.
appreciate
I really
you coming
appreciate it.
all the way over here, and it's like good work.
Yeah. Again, there was a proposal, but I will now but I was gone.
Okay.
So I will send a second edit of that.
Yeah, you can always send it back.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so the next topic on tonight's agenda is a discussion decision regarding updating the designated paid holiday list in section 7 of the employee policy and procedure manual. And I think you have a page in your packet on it.
Yeah, so on this item, Cheryl and I had spoken about this, and we had previously, Jennifer had done some research. Also, so Jennifer was originally approached by Tom Hopkins on California Native American Day. And he says, you guys should consider closing for Native American Day. Happened to be September 22nd on Friday. And then, of course, in the past, I had mentioned to Anton even last year, consider it. And then Jennifer put together some research from what other cities are doing. One of the consistent holidays was the day after Thanksgiving, the Friday. And we did give it to our employees last year. I did. And I had mentioned it to a few of the council members before I went in. But we wanted to make it officially a holiday in the city. And that's what this proposal is for. And in my conversation with Cheryl, it was like, okay, there's a number of other holidays. We'll try to get some more information and think a little bit more about that in the future. We didn't want to rush and try to do everything now. And on the other hand, we didn't want to wait to address this particular holiday next, because that would only give people weeks to plan something. So hopefully this way our employees have, if they want to go out of town or whatever. Certainly one of the advantages of having that is that they could go visit family. Or in Portland or in the Bay Area, first Thanksgiving and then work the following would make. So that's what basically I'm saying here. For all of the other cities in Humboldt County, 6 other cities is Henleyville, CSD, and I know the county. Thanksgiving is a holiday. So it's a suggestion that is at a future meeting. There's some other. Well, Gabe had prepared some good information from what Jennifer had put together. But what I wanted to do is actually create a chart, and in the chart, holidays and the cities. So top would be like the so on and so forth, and then on the side would be the various holidays. We'll have like an X for each one, so you can see it all on one page and consider which other holidays. I think that really would add one.
So tonight would be just the
it.
decision on Thanksgiving.
Exactly.
And then, but we're proposing that we come back with like a 2024 schedule. And then we can kind of look at them all up and compare to other cities, and then also the federal holidays, right, Eli? So we can kind of see which ones are,
Yeah.
So any questions about that from the council?
Okay, that they didn't already have this. This is kind of a shocker to me that they aren't doing this already. So yeah, that t-shirt was so important. That was a great time to be.
Yeah, I'm in favor of it as well. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Public comment. Any public comments regarding the day after Thanksgiving for staff time off? Okay, I see no public comments, so I'll bring it back to the council.
I move to approve the Friday after Thanksgiving as the Trinidad.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passes unanimously. Happy Turkey Day, everybody. Sorry. Okay, so future agenda, we're almost home, you guys. Future agenda items. Stick with me, follow my voice. I'm just kidding. Okay, future agenda items. So I had captured tonight the holidays for employees. We're going to put that for in the next couple of months. I wanted to add a community survey. So we have a draft community survey and have the council review it. At some point, we should talk about enforcement, whether it's enforcing leash laws, enforcing speed limits, giving out tickets, like how we're going to enforce things. So I have that on my list. Yeah, the radio spots, we're going to talk about the public awareness campaign again. And then sales tax. So I think we should, even if it's the state's responsibility, because I take Gabe's point on that, because we rolled it all up to them, we probably need to talk about what staff has done to try to, in the past, and what they're trying to do to mitigate it this time. And then maybe we can have some sort of collective response to CDTA.
I've been noticing the curb is eroding over by the, kind of where that truck sits every day. I was wondering if there was a way we could fix that curb and then not have a drop off that's 3 feet from the street. So maybe Public Works, or I don't know, we could find it in a budget to fix it so people can walk without having to take a big seat.
Yeah, that probably drives with the comment we got last time about the benches.
Yeah,
like a
the benches are exactly in that same area.
Other topic.
I kind of would like to get back to some of the work that my people are doing in City Hall and repairing some of the things that people are complaining of.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Gabe and Eli, but I thought we had a capital project list that we were going to discuss. I remember when we did our budget, I thought there was maybe have a list of capital projects. There's some money set aside for certain things and others. Yeah, if we could, I think there's a list of, right. We don't want to talk about benches 1 week or 1 month and then talk about another month. Alcohol. Most of that has been come from source of money, if I'm not.
That would be a good discussion.
We do have some money set aside strictly for town hall.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's let's see what we've already budgeted and just make it happen, as opposed to doing it by.
Back when we do the budget, mid-year budget.
We do the, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
We've made or where we're headed.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then I did want to note that I had already written it on my page 1 here today, which is the wind. And I'm thinking before we get, because we already had it budgeted, before we get to the rainy season, that maybe we can approach that like next month or two.
Yeah.
Budgeted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did see one thing I wanted to thank Public Works for, which is the new bench on Trinidad Head. So they've started replacing the benches, I think, and just if you're hiking up there, have a look. But yeah, it looks great.
That bench was made in my driveway.
Eli, someone brought this to my attention when we were having that great music festival a couple months ago. There were so many people in here, and it was kind of a hot environment as well. And it would be really great to have like a mini split added to this room as well. Then we could have, when lots of people are in this room, it's really pretty hot. And so that would actually attract more to, more events as well. If there was a cooling system to take the heat out for dances and other fun events in here. And mini splits aren't too expensive.
Is that a?
Yeah, little wall units.
Little air conditioning.
Yeah.
The European stuff.
Are those notices about the soliciting information from the neighbors about the speed bumps? Are they coming down now? So
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
coming
so,
down now.
We've reached some conclusions tonight.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like that's where we're headed to direction as opposed to asking for more feedback. So it would be appropriate for those to come out.
That would be good.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Gabe had prepared those signs and quite a good particular. There's also color. This way, people, if they already saw a yellow one, now they see a blue one, then they might read it. But if they see it looking yellow again, they might not read it.
All right, anything else? Okay, I think that's it. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. He was the person I'm talking about that was going to give me eye. Please.
Recording stopped.